The Magicians podcast is brought to you in proud association with the Magic Circle, Alakazam Magic and Gigio.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult moments of my life. Just that I felt bad for myself, but I almost felt worse for the person.
Hello my friends, welcome to the Magicians podcast. My name is Richard Young, I am your host, welcome to the show. Now I imagine right now you are listening to this podcast on your iPhone, maybe your smartphone, your tablet, or perhaps you are sat in front of a computer. If you are doing any of those things, you can help this podcast out right now massively, and it will take you less than 1 minute. All you need to do is leave the podcast a review on the iTunes store. It would really help us out. It doesn't take 10 minutes, it doesn't take 5 minutes, it doesn't even take 1 minute. You can do it right now. Leave us a review. It helps the podcast's ranking in the iTunes store, and I would really appreciate it. If you've listened to these podcasts for years, then it's the tiny thing you can do to support us, and it would mean the world to me. That's obviously if you leave a 5-star review. Just a hint there. Anyway, if you can do that right now, I would sincerely appreciate it. Okay, we've got a great episode lined up today. Let's check in with our great friend Alan Hudson and find out what's been going on in the world of magic this week. Happy Friday, Alan Hudson. What is going on?
Good interview last week.
With Kevin. Did you enjoy it? Sorry, not Kevin. That's today.
No, the other one.
Yeah, Keelan.
Yeah, Keelan. Yeah, it was good. Do you know what? I've known Keelan for ages, but don't really, as I said last week, I don't really know him well. So really interesting to hear about all that stuff. Like, you know, like parents, seamstresses and stuff. Because I've often thought, how on earth do you get into costume changes?
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. Yeah, have a mum who's a seamstress and go to a David and Daniel workshop and be prepared to spend an hour or so before your gig getting ready.
Yeah, he's very good at getting in on early trends. That's what I learned from that. So, yeah. Costume changes, and then digital magic in the magic tricks. That was good.
What will be next? What do you think?
Mind reading dog.
That's going to be the new thing. Everyone's going to have a mind reading dog at a close up job. Brilliant stuff.
What you been up to? I'll tell you what I've been up to. I've been up to comedy clubs this weekend. That was good.
How'd they go?
It was alright. Yeah, there's no funny stories because they all went well. So which is good for the career. Terrible for the content.
So tell me, what was the fee like for the comedy clubs? Were they good?
All right. I'll tell you. Right, I'll tell you how much it was. So the one on a Friday, the double up, was £270, right? And that's to go to one club and then close another club. And then the one on Saturday night was £300, and that was just, which is weird, isn't it? Because that's more money, yet I was only doing one club. Comedy clubs are weird. They vary from nothing to, like, but you know, 200 quid, 300 quid, something like that. And then I guess you can get more, but you know, sometimes you can get a lot more than that if you got good TV credits and stuff. But yeah, you know, but as a magician, as a close-up magician, that's kind of quite a low fee, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to talk about something quite controversial here. Are you up for a little bit of a controversial conversation, Hudson?
Yeah, go on.
I did a close-up gig yesterday, and it was a 90th birthday party. Why are really old people...
I'm trying to work out what you're about to say. Sorry, that's why I started laughing. Because I got about 3 different things that you're about to say now in my head. And I'm trying to work out which one it's going to be.
So what I'm going to say is, why do really old people why do they not watch Close Up Magic? Why are they not interested? Why do they just want you? Why do they just want you to go away? What is that about?
Now that is not one of the 3 things I thought you might be saying. That's all right. Why don't they? They've seen it all before, haven't they?
Just not interested, are they? It doesn't matter how hard you try, how much you try to engage with them. They just want you to go away. Like,
is it because they can't hear you?
I don't know. I didn't think about that. Yeah, maybe they can't hear or see very well or something. But I don't know.
And let's be honest, you've probably given up on life, really, haven't you? Most of the time at that age.
Do you think?
I mean, you've got very, very little time left, and the last thing you want to do is see some twat push a card in the middle and come to the top.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really trying hard. And obviously the younger guys, the grandkids, and even the kids, they all loved it. But there were these 2 tables of sort of older folks, and I really wanted to do a good job, and they just wanted me to go away. And, so I did, basically, after, I got the hints, but I was just kind of like going, this happens a lot when you go to tables with, like, really much older folks on. And if anyone's got any top tips on how you keep the attention of very old folks when you're doing close-up at their table, please let me know, because I die every single time I do a table of that kind of age group. So, do you die when you do that?
What about old people at an Indian wedding?
Actually, see, this is fascinating. I literally have told this story to a friend. I tend to go down quite well with old people at Indian weddings. I do. Yeah, it's white British old people who really don't like me and want me to go away. How do you find it with the white British old people and then the Indian old people? We need to be really careful what we're saying here, don't we?
Yeah, no, it's just they do react differently, don't they? It's I find the younger ones at Indian weddings absolutely love it, and occasionally the older ones I do find quite difficult. Like it just is. I'll be honest, I've not had that much of a problem with old people at a normal sort of white British traditional wedding. I've not. That's our birthday party. They're alright, aren't they?
I don't know. Maybe it's just me then. Maybe I'm just not very good at my job. I go down well most places. People book me again. Normally, sometimes. But there we go.
I noticed last week on Keelan's interview. Like at one point, you said to him, I can't remember what it was about. I think it was like the Quick Change Act. Nobody was booking it anymore, and he was going, "Oh well, I'm gonna have to go back to Close Up Magic." And you went, "Oh God," right? As if it's the worst thing. As if it's like the worst thing in the world.
I heard that too. It's my initial reaction, isn't it? Like, oh God,
oh God. So why is it that is your reaction? Why is that the worst thing in the world to do a close-up job? Because I'll be honest, like we've said before, weeks and weeks ago when we started off, we said about the leeching, right, and stuff like that. And you go, I don't think a lot of close-up gigs are that bad. Some are terrible, admittedly, right? So for instance, if you're in a pub and it's crowded and it's businessmen in suits, right? And it's just awful, right? Or sometimes you get 500 people in a big dinner hall and there's like 10 magicians and you're just the service, aren't you? Right? You just go and do it, and you keep getting stopped when the auctioneer comes on, or they're doing the heads and tails game or something like that. But they're not all bad, are they? So what do you think about that? Do you think all close-up gigs are bad, or is it just some of them?
No, I don't. And do you know what? Actually, it's brilliant you bring this up this week, because Kevin and I are going to talk about this on this podcast you're about to listen to. And Kevin made an amazing statement on another podcast recently that I heard, where he said that he believes performing close-up magic is bad for your mental health. And the guys that were interviewing him actually didn't ask him to elaborate on it, but so I do in this interview. And so I think Kevin's got a much more articulate answer for it than I do. Listen, it's not that bad. We're very, very lucky to do it. I do think it breeds a bad lifestyle if you don't have structure in your life sometimes, particularly actually if you're a single guy. I think it's different maybe if you've got a partner who gets up in the morning and goes to work and you get up as a result. I think that's a little bit different. Or you've got kids that you need to get to school. But I think if you're, as lots of us were in our mid-20s, earning quite a lot of money and not having to do a great deal. There's a friend of mine actually who I won't name, who I was speaking to recently, who said he's an incredibly intelligent guy. And he's a magician you've all heard of, and he does a bit of close-up magic, and he said he just sits around the house all week. And so I think when I go, oh God, I think it isn't just the thought of doing the gig that makes me feel like that. It's the lifestyle that it breeds. And I think particularly with someone like Keelan says about going and being a close-up magician, I go, oh God, what a shame. Because Keelan's, as we talked about last week, he's got all these he's a very talented person, and, he was a brilliant young magician, and he had dreams of being a stage performer and all those kind of things. So I think I just see it as a bit of a shame, really. But listen, I can enjoy a gig just as much as anyone. I've got to be honest with you, actually, the gig I did on Saturday, the 90th birthday, I actually had a great time. Genuinely, I did. Had a really good time. It was a nice venue, and yeah, there were those 2 tables where it didn't go well, but that's all part of the story, isn't it? You did say something once, though, and I'm going to call you out on this, and you can explain it. You did say that you think that if anyone is just perfectly happy doing close-up magic and they don't see that it's like a dead-end job, they're a bit stupid. You did say that, didn't you? You did say that.
I did say that, yeah. Yeah. Well, because surely you've got aspirations to do other things. But I don't know. See, I think I'm quite happy doing them sometimes because I've got other stuff going on.
And I think you got Kat.
Yeah, possibly.
That woman is the best thing to ever happen to you. She's amazing, and you guys are a great couple. And, I've known you a long time, and to be honest, you were a bit of a miserable sod about a decade ago. You were funny, but you were miserable. You're not miserable anymore. You're a happy guy. And I think Kat has been the most brilliant, positive influence on your life. And you know this. I've said this to you before. And I think you've got that structure. You told me now. You get up in the morning, you and Kat, you go to the gym, and then you come back and there's a bit to do, and then you might go out for lunch, and then you have a gig in the evening. That's great. But you would probably remember the days when you were single, right? Unhealthy lifestyle. Would you agree when you look back?
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. And I think if you've got nothing else going on, just doing close-up gigs is bad. But I think, and if you're quite happy just to do them, like when I said, oh, you're a bit stupid, I think I just meant, how can you not have any aspirations to do anything else? How is that? I can't understand the mindset of going, I'm quite happy just to do these gigs. This is enough for me. Because surely you want to progress to do something else.
Yeah, I think so.
It's when people take it as a business. Like, I read on the forums on Facebook and stuff, people talk about close-up magic as a business all the time. And I think that's what annoys me a bit sometimes, is it's not a business. Like, magic should be like an art, and it should be something that you're trying to get better at, and something, you're trying to create something. And I think when people just see it as a business, to do the gigs, and they're not bothered about putting anything else into magic, they're just going, oh, I'll just buy those tricks, I'll just do them, and that's my job. You just go, that's a bit sad, isn't it? It's
a bit sad, yeah. And I don't think I think it's rare that anyone gets into it just for that reason. So this has been great. Listen, let's talk about this week's episode, because you know Kevin really, really well, don't you?
I do, yeah.
You did an Edinburgh show with him in 2008, Magic to Get Girls By, which has been mentioned on this podcast before. And Kevin's going to talk about that a little bit in this interview. But when did you meet? He doesn't mention this. When did you and Kevin meet?
So I met him, I can't remember what year it was, but he'd just done a Faking It, which I'm sure you go into on the podcast. So he'd just done that, and me and my girlfriend at the time went to Edinburgh Festival, and we were sat in the bar in the Pleasance. So the Pleasance courtyard in Edinburgh, that on the left hand side there's that little inside bit, and we were sat in there having a drink, and I looked across, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, oh, I recognise that guy, I think he might be a magician. And then he was staring at us, and I was staring at him, and I sort of made eye contact with him, and he made eye contact in my direction. And then I went over and I said, "Oh, hi, sorry, are you a magician? Have we met before?" And he went, kind of, not really, kind of. I've just done a show called Faking It, which I'd seen.
Ah, okay.
Right? So I'd recognised him from that show, but then sort of couldn't work out. You know where you see somebody, but you can't work out who they are. You just know that you know them.
Yes.
And so he went, kind of, I've just done a show about that. And then it turns out that the reason that he was looking across is because he thought my girlfriend was giving eyes at him.
Just be clear, this wasn't Kat, was it? This was years before.
No, this is
Yeah.
So so then we laughed about that, and then he said, "Do you want to join us for a drink?" And then we sat down and we had a chat, and then we've been friends ever since.
Actually, you two have both done well, haven't you, if you think about it? You're married to Kat, he's married to Svetlana. You've both done very, very well. I think you both know that.
Does he mention in the podcast how he met Svetlana?
Yeah, she came to your show.
Yeah,
The Magic to Get Girls by show. And she came
Unbelievable.
to your show. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, listen, this is a great podcast you're about to hear. Kevin's a really intelligent bloke. And also, listen, there's some amazing things he's done. The Edinburgh Magic Festival, which just like this podcast is to me, it's a passion project for him. He doesn't make any money from it, but, really puts his heart and soul into it with Svetlana every year. Also talks about, obviously, the fact that he is now making his living as a stage magician, which is incredible. And he's been off recently to do the Adelaide Festival and the Perth festival as well. It's got a bit of everything, this podcast. I think you're going to really like it. Got anything else you want to add, Hudson, before you go on holiday?
No, just about Magic Fest. I've done that 3 times, and I can say I hope it continues. And because I know Kevin will listen to this bit, just publicly, well done, Kevin. That's an absolutely brilliant thing you've done. What an amazing achievement and Svetlana as well does an incredible job.
Absolutely. But you're going to hear all about this. It's brilliant. This was recorded last Friday night. Very recent, this was. Literally recorded last Friday night at the Magic Circle in London. Kevin was performing on the South Bank this past weekend. And here he is. This is Kevin McMahon. Kevin Quantum is his stage name. This is the interview. Here we go. Enjoy. So I'm sat here in the Magic Circle Theatre next to my good friend from Scotland, who I've known for a long time, and I'm genuinely a bit choked up because he's brought me a gift. Kevin McMahon, Kevin Quantum, welcome to the Magicians Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I actually waved at the mic there when you introduced me.
You did wave, yeah, which is quite interesting. You brought me a gift. I'm genuinely touched. What have I done to deserve this?
What have you done? Well, I guess, is it a gift or is it more of a sort of, it was a guilty thing because I felt like every time someone does a podcast with you, they bring something, and I decided I want to keep on that tradition. So I brought Jaffa Cakes.
A twin pack.
Twin pack, that's right. There's two packs in there, Richard.
Hang on a minute. Oh, I see. You want to share them.
2 separate individual. So there's no accidental taking from the other person's
Is this, I do like them. Is this the one where they talk about should they be in the cake aisle or the biscuit aisle?
That's been resolved.
Has it?
Yeah, there was because I think cake is vatable at a higher rate than biscuits because it's seen as a luxury.
What was that word? Vatable?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
VAT.
Oh, you mean like the tax,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should really... Yeah, so there's a different tax on... Yeah, things that are basics aren't subject to VAT. Things like children's clothes or things that you need every day, like most items of food, but things like that are considered luxuries, like Jaffa Cakes are... or no, they're not, because they proved they were biscuits. The Jaffa Cake was just a name. It wasn't actually a description of what they are.
See, what you've already done in the first 2 minutes of this interview is just shown you're a clever bloke, aren't you?
No, it's just... I'm full
you
of
are. You're a clever
rubbish,
bloke.
useless information.
Here's your pack then.
Excellent.
If you can't finish them, then obviously just hand them back. Thanks for doing this.
That's
and
all right, pleasure.
I'm going to explain that I recently heard you on another podcast.
Yes.
The Cain and Abel podcast. Two great guys, and they got a great interview out of you, and it was biographical in nature. So we're going to try our best not to go too much over what they've done with you, but I mean we've got to still tell your story.
Yeah.
And you were just saying to me before we turned the microphone on that the Keelan Laser episode has just published, and obviously there's a lot of that is about Keelan as a young magician, and you said you get I mean, the word you use, you're almost a little bit jealous that you didn't have that when you were a kid, because you got into magic very different from everybody, didn't you?
Yeah, I was in my like mid-20s, 25.
Everybody knows you were the guy from Faking It, basically.
Yeah, that's right. So Faking It was this reality TV show that was on Channel 4 years ago, where they took someone and trained them for 4 weeks to do something they'd never done before. So there was lots of different episodes. One where a burger van chef became a gourmet chef. This is like Gordon Ramsay kind of was one of the things that made him famous, was from Faking It. A cellist became a DJ. A ballet dancer became a bouncer. A sheep shearer became a hairdresser. And of course, there was an episode where a scientist became a magician.
Which was you.
Which was me.
How did you get the gig?
It happened because I was injured. I was playing football. I was doing a postgrad at Heriot-Watt University, and it was the physics versus the maths department. I got injured, and because of that, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I used to cycle to university 6 miles there and back. I played football, did running, all that sort of stuff. I had a lot of time on my hands, and this email had come through before I'd been injured from the Institute of Physics. So it's kind of like the magic circle for physicists. And it said, it's Einstein Week. I remember that. Einstein, massive celebration in the physics world, Einstein Week. But at the bottom, there was a little footer saying, this reality TV show, Faking It, are looking for physicists to be part of the show. And it stuck in my mind. And I guess when I had my injury, I was just in front of my computer. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'll just apply for that. There was a few days left. So I did. I applied. I got my mate Andy, who was another physicist, but he also made short films. So I had to make a little 3-minute film. And we made this absolute cracking film where I totally geeked myself up. Shaved all my beard off apart from my moustache, jumper, bow tie, got my violin out, and we made this crazy video of how much of a scientist I was. Because he had the foresight to realise it's for TV. If they want a scientist, we'll give them a scientist.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. So there was an interview process, but then Channel 4, the production company that was working with Channel 4, they came and said, yeah, would you like to do this? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it, but I won't do anything that's embarrassing. Faking It always stood out to me as a great show because they taught you a skill.
Yeah.
You know, it was like it was invaluable. These people that their lives had been transformed by being on this show, and not in like a horrible Love Island kind of way, but in a way where they'd just been exposed to the most creative and amazing people in a certain industry. And then they'd gone on to do this challenge, this test at the end. And that always appealed to me. So when the opportunity came along, I said, yes, I'll do it. And they said, okay, great. You're going to do magic. You're going to become a magician. I was, oh man, amazing. I love magic.
Had you played with a magic set as a kid? Had you ever learnt any tricks? Had you ever been to magic shows? Was this literally the beginning of the story?
Yeah, I had a Paul Daniels set as a kid. That's probably no surprise being my age. And I did magic shows for my brother and my sisters when I was younger. Like, you know, not proper shows, but we usually took a doorway and we got those baby things that stop the babies from going into the kitchen. We got that out and I covered it with an old black jacket. So I was already building theatres, and then they all stood on one side and I was on the other side. I would just dip behind them and bring out props. And but yeah, apart from that, I learned. I didn't realize it was called this at the time, but when I was in that phase, when I was about 9 or 10, I learned how to do a back palm, and because I got this book on manipulation from the library. And I learned how to do a back palm.
Okay.
But that was my... That's probably quite an advanced sleight. There's probably a lot of close-up magicians working right now that don't know how to do a back palm. But I did. So that was it. And so I love magic. They offered me the opportunity. And I was like, all right, this is going to be amazing. When do we start? And that was 4 weeks that literally transformed my life.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it, and obviously we had Nigel on the show a few months ago who talked about the process. He was kind of like your mentor, your guru through the show.
He was.
Penn and Teller were involved as well. What are some of your highlights when you look back on it now? What are some of the memories that stick out the most for those 4 weeks when you were making the show?
Oh, the main highlight was the people that I got exposed to and I met. Nigel Mead was the main mentor, who you had on, Mandy Moodin. She was one of the 3-man mentor team as well, and also Pat Page, who, I mean, I've still got shivers down the back of my spine. I mean, he was such a legend. Just to get to know him and to understand who he was and his position in the magic world was amazing. Obviously, Penn and Teller, they were two massive part of actually my success on the show. I'll come back to that. And then there were the people that I was on stage with that are still doing magic now. One of them's Matt Edwards. I'm sure people will remember him from Britain's Got Talent a year or two ago. He stormed it, and he was one of the guys towards the end. But along that journey, I met Paul Zerdin at Mandy Moodin's house as well. I didn't know who he was at the time, but I met him. And there were other magicians that I met along the way as well, that some have been on, some haven't. And it was just those people were the main influence, the main catalyst for me that changed me. I think it's people that change people. I had the experience of dropping the cards on the floor, embarrassing myself in front of Penn and Teller, going around a bloody bar asking girls to go on dates, all this sort of stuff as part of the show. And that, that's funny and anecdotally funny, but it's the people, being exposed to those people and seeing how the kind of top in different parts of the industry worked. I think that was the main thing. Yeah, it was great.
I'm interested, I've not actually heard you just answer this question directly. I've heard you talk about faking it a few times, which was, did you think you would fake it as such, or did you think you'd be rumbled?
Oh,
what were your own expectations, sort of, say the day before you actually, did the final bit?
Well, when I did the final show, I was in a really good space. I think I'd really been drilled. I'd been in a theatre, I'd probably done more rehearsal than, a lot of magicians would do for a Fringe show. For instance, I'd been in the theatre, I'd been working with Nigel, of course, with Pat, had a few days with him, Penn and Teller, had a few days with in Vegas. I'd been really drilled on this act. I'd written the script out. I had all the sort of jokes. I'd done this same routine in comedy clubs, probably 7 or 8 times before I actually done it on stage for the final test. I was drilled. I was ready. I felt good. And there was a few things that went wrong. I remember when I left the stage and I tried to open a door and there was no door handle on it, and it was a pull door, and I couldn't pull it to open it. So even then the audience were still laughing. I was ad-libbing. I was even ad-libbing. But a week prior to that, when I was at my lowest point and the act hadn't come together, I didn't think there was any chance. I thought, I'm up against 3 professional magicians, have to fool Paul Daniels. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Kerry Marks as well. He was part of the show too. I don't know if you know Kerry.
Where is that guy?
Yeah, I saw him just a few weeks ago.
I was a big fan of his when he was on the Big Talent show.
Oh, he's brilliant.
He was Jonathan Ross and stuff. He's got a great way about him. I really like him.
He was out in Adelaide when I was doing the Fringe out there. He was doing comedy out there.
That's good to know. He's still around. He's one person I've never seen him. My path has never crossed with him. I hope it does at some point.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. Really, really good. Every time I see him, I'm always like, remember faking it, Kerry? He's like, yeah, and he gives me that sort of rolled-eyed look and he tells me the story about how he was manipulated to being part of the judging panel. So that were the main influences. That's how it affected me. The question you asked, though, what was the question? Let me just answer it.
Did you think you'd actually be able to fake it?
So by the day of the final test, I was nervous but confident. A week before, I didn't think I had any chance. 2 weeks before, I was a bit cocky. I thought I'd maybe be okay. And so that's that. It was literally a roller coaster. Yeah. And my mind and mood changed.
So this is back in the day when, there's Sky TV, but terrestrial channels, there's 5 channels. And so it's a big show, right? It was a weekday night on Channel 4. Did your life change overnight? Where did the process come from, you moving then from being a scientist to going, actually, I'm going to give this a go?
Right. So, I was doing my PhD at the time, and
also because I like to diversify on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
At some point during this podcast, can you please explain black holes to us all? Because there's been a lot about them recently, and I got to be honest, I haven't got a clue.
Yeah, of course.
We can come back to that.
Yeah. Okay. But do remind me. I'll bite my finger to remember. Right, so I'm in black hole territory. What was the question again? I've lost the question.
My question has gone into the black hole there, hasn't it? Which was just when the show went out. Obviously, it was a big show.
Oh, the transition.
Yeah, the transition of your life from.
How did it happen? So I came back and I went back to my desk after the Faking It show had finished. I had no intention of ceasing my PhD. I wanted to continue to get to become a doctor, and 2 days of sitting in my desk, my head was buzzing. I just couldn't work. I took a day off and I came back in to speak to my supervisor and said, right, I've had enough. I can't continue with this. I need to. I kind of been shown a different way to lead my life. I guess since high school, I'd just been on that track. I was good at physics, so I did physics at university. I finished my degree, did a master's, I did well in that. Did a PhD. I was just on this track, this this kind of perfect career advisor trajectory, let's call it. The trajectory that any career advisor would be like, yeah, that's the way to go.
Well, you're very smart and very sensible. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? So I imagine you were probably one of those people from quite young. You knew I'm going to go in this direction. So this faking it thing threw a right curveball at you, I guess, didn't it?
Totally, yeah. So when it happened, I thought, I really want to make a go of this. I can't do both at the same time. Now, in reflection, that, especially where I am now, that may have been the wrong decision, but I can't really regret that. I decided I want to give everything to one thing, and that was to magic. And at that point in my life, I decided science is going to be boxed and put over there. I'm now a magician. And then I had to start getting gigs and getting money and getting paid. And Nigel's podcast talked about this TGI Fridays empire. I was part of that.
You were one of the TGI guys.
I can tell you exactly how much he paid. I got paid 120 quid a night.
So I reckon he was getting 150 and he was creaming 30 off the top.
I think that's the truth. Yeah,
that sounds. There you go, an exclusive on the Magicians podcast right there. So you were at TGI Fridays in Edinburgh?
In Glasgow. Yeah,
Glasgow, right?
I was doing, at my peak, I was doing 2 TGI Fridays. The only ones that had magicians were both in Glasgow, so I was doing 2 a week. I was tutoring maths and physics to kids at high schools, and I had a day job as well, working in a fast food restaurant just to make ends meet.
It was McDonald's, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. What was that like, by the way? I've sometimes considered getting a job there, and this is not a joke. I've talked about this before. It's because I want to understand the system of McDonald's and why it's so successful. Is it worth me getting a job there for a few weeks?
No, it's not. I don't think it is. I don't think it's... At the level that you'll start at, it's very difficult to have any kind of original thought in McDonald's. It's very much process driven. Everyone at that level is given a very tight regimented set of things that they can and can't do, and you're not encouraged to go outside of that. It's not great for creativity. I guess as time goes on, and if you're... The things that I would used to do, because they used to encourage by giving me vouchers to McDonald's employees, like why do I want a voucher of £10 I can only spend at McDonald's? It's just ridiculous. So I went to the local Odeon cinema and worked out a deal where we'd swap their Odeon cinema vouchers for the McDonald's ones, so their staff would get McDonald's vouchers and we would get Odeon cinema vouchers, which was, like, for me the most creative thing I did in McDonald's. But there was just a problem there, and I was sick of McDonald's, and it was embarrassing as well. I shouldn't feel that way, but there was part of me that was. I felt like I was really well educated, and going back to that to make ends meet, it was a really tough thing, especially after faking it.
You said you were recognised in there, weren't you?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most difficult moments of my life. Just that I felt bad for myself, but I almost felt worse for the person, because they'd seen this wonderful journey of me transforming into a magician, and then me being a magician, and then seeing me working at McDonald's. And I shouldn't feel that way. You should never have anything but pride in what you do, and if you don't, then you should change it. But at that moment, I felt like I wanted the earth to open up and swallow me. It was a really hard moment for me, and I knew at that point I had to just move to a happier place. Looking back, I just think it was...
I find that amazing, Kevin. You're saying you were embarrassed for them, not for yourself, actually, because they'd watched you go on this incredible journey. You almost felt like you were letting them down?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the way I felt. And, there's obviously this self-interest as well, but that story was so inspiring, and I was aware of that, to so many people all over the UK. It was, it's translated into Spanish. It was on airplanes, and people were watching it in-flight entertainment all over the world. Like, millions of people had saw this show, and then I felt this, almost heroic ending was being spoiled by this, by seeing me in this environment, because it wasn't part of the story. This is the hidden story behind, I guess, the sort of shiny front end success story. There's a lot. I think if you speak to any performer, there's highs and lows, and for me, this was a really difficult moment.
Let's talk about how you go then from McDonald's employee to full-time magician.
Yeah, so I set myself a target quite shortly after that. Set myself 2 targets. One was to run the New York Marathon, and the other one was to do a fringe show. And within, I think, probably 12 months, I'd done both. So I was quite happy with that.
That's good. But how do you make a living as a magician? Because you don't make money at the Fringe the first year.
No, you don't. But the Fringe was the catalyst. So the August that after that came out, I decided that I handed in my notice, and that experience of being on stage, getting laughs, having audiences come and see me. I mean, I didn't lose money either. It made me. I remember at the end of my first Fringe run, the show was called Tricks I've Learned Since Being on Telly. That was a no qualter invention of a title. I was struggling for names back then. We went. I remember at the end of that run just feeling so good, because I just wanted to go on stage more and do more stage shows and do more shows for people that were paying to see me. You know, I had a great little 10 minutes in that, and I was so good at that. But how do you make money? That's the question you asked me. Well, at that point, I was doing a lot of close-up magic. That's what was paying the bills, and did for most of the career I've had. At the time, there was this wonderful transition between where agents were kind of dishing out jobs to a lot of magicians, and where digital technology, especially Google and things like Google Ads and all this sort of stuff was taking over, and not many people knew how to work that. But there was a core of magicians that were smart enough. Noel Qualter, Rob James, Alan Hudson, and I was part of this little cartel, and we were quite good at making websites, optimizing, and we actually had this thing called a spreadsheet. It's this thing that's called the cloud now. We didn't probably realize that at the time, but we shared our diaries with each other so we could see when each other was working. Then if we were working, we could then give a really hearty recommendation for another magician who wasn't working in our little group of four.
Yeah.
And so from that, I built like a career as a close-up magician very quickly, working 3, 4, 5 gigs a week through this thing. I think it was Rob's idea. I'm not sure where the genesis came from, but it was close-up magic. I did wedding fairs to get my name out there. I was quite an amicable person, so even when I wasn't that great at magic in the early years, I was really well liked, and the story was really interesting. This whole scientist to magician story, which I did play on, still do, and the close-up magic was well paid, left me a lot of time during the day to watch, a lot of Star Trek Voyager and the like, and that's how I got by. Yeah, within about 18 months of faking it, I had a really solid reputation as a really good close-up magician, and with the advertising, the AdWords and the wedding fairs, I was very busy.
When did you realise that is all a load of shit and not a long-term plan?
Ah, God. When did I realise? I don't think I realised it. Really interesting. So realisation is different from being told it but not having it sink in. You know what I mean? So I think when I first met Rob, Alan and Noel, they were already jaded at the point at which I met them as close-up magicians. And I was really surprised. I'm like, man, I'm living the dream right now. And they were like, give it a few years. We've been doing this for 10 years now. And it didn't sink in then. I was really enjoying my life. I was earning good money, more than my friends were who had white collar professional jobs. I was working, probably 10, 12 hours per week pro rata, not much. Had a lot of time on my hands, saving a lot of money. And it was good for a good few years, but I got older, and then you start to project into the future, don't you? So probably it was maybe 5 years ago. I just projected ahead. I saw more competition. I saw myself getting older. I saw myself being a box that was being ticked by an event organizer who wanted a magician rather than wanting to book Kevin. And I thought that then will probably incur a price battle. And then if there's a price battle, they'll go for the lowest one on the whole. It's not going to be great long term. And I just wanted to be an individual. Ultimately, I sat down with my wife, Svetlana, who's a really smart woman, and we just made a plan. And the plan was to try and make most of my income from selling tickets just for people to come and see me, as much as for my own, because that's why people get into magic, isn't it? To do shows. They see like Darren Brown, Penn and Teller, Dynamo, whatever, touring, and they want to go on stage and do magic shows. That's what I was like when I was 25. I'm sure there's younger audience members who go and see these amazing live magic shows, the Ehrlich Brothers, whatever, and they just see these people on stage and they think that's what being a magician is. That's what it is. You probably if you're not into magic, don't even realise there's this world of close-up magic out there as a kid. Maybe you do. Maybe that's what people are striving to become now. Who knows? But it wasn't for me, and I decided to change, and I wanted to make a career as a stage magician, or at least as Kevin the magician, rather than just a magician. And the Edinburgh Fringe was on my doorstep, so we just started thinking about how to actually make money from magic, how we can make money from doing fringes, from doing tours, from doing live shows, and that always then leads you to thinking, well, how can I be unique? Because there's enough people out there doing, Martin Sanderson's back catalogue, isn't there? Yeah. The sort of the omni-deck finish on an ambitious routine, or the chop cup as he does it, or card to envelope, or bottle through table with Etienne Paris, or whatever. There's so many people doing the same material, and it's great, don't get me wrong, it's really solid stuff. If you've never seen it before, it will blow your mind if it's performed right. But it's not great when you're doing that, when you've done that 1,000 times and you get the same, and there's no progression. You think to yourself, I tweaked this, I tweaked that, but there's nothing else there that's creative. There's no massive work that's pushing you onwards. So,
well, I've also heard you say that you think it's bad for your mental health.
Yeah, okay.
And then that's another step beyond just, there's no progression, it's a dead end thing and all that. But you're a smart guy.
Okay.
That's quite a big thing to say, and I'm interested to know, why you think it goes that far, that it's actually bad for your mental health to be a jobbing close-up magician.
Right. Okay. So let me say it was bad for my mental health. Maybe that's because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are different and they're differently set up. So the lack of creativity, the fact that you're not being booked because of you, but because they want a magician, it makes you feel your self-worth goes down. Does that make sense? So when that goes down, then obviously there's going to be a spiral there. The fact that it's so lonely, it doesn't feel lonely when you're performing at a gig, but these transient 5-minute relationships that you have with an audience, they break very quickly, and then you have to do the same to another audience, and you have to constantly build that up, and it's a very lonely job in that regard. It's very surface level. Let's just say there's not very much emotion beyond amazement in a close-up magician's work. So that for me was a problem, and I think the repetition. Yeah, if I go back to that, the repetition was really, and that was the thing I talked about McDonald's with it. It's a problem there. It was also a problem with close-up magic. I felt like there was no outlet for creativity, and that's probably what spurred me on to make, I guess less money, but enjoy myself more and make my own work.
Did you find any ways to look after yourself when ultimately, for a period of time you're stuck doing it, aren't you? Because you've got to make a living. Yeah. Is there anything you found that worked for you in terms of just being able to deal with it? Knowing, as we can hear, you're an intelligent guy, you've analysed the situation, you've identified all these things which are absolutely true. Mm-hmm. How did you look after yourself?
Well, I have a family and I've got a daughter, so having a solid family is really important. My wife is, again, I repeat this, just an amazing woman, really understands the industry, and she helped. So and I've got an amazing family life. I'm really close. My dad sadly passed away a few months ago, but close to him and my mom, my brother, my 2 sisters. My brother's got 3 kids as well. I've got a really strong set of friends and family up in Edinburgh that I constantly rely on for support, and friends from university, from magic that I've got as well. So I've got a great support network there. I mean, I'm making it sound like it was I was down in the dumps and it was really bad and I was moping around, and maybe I was. I never on reflection, maybe I was watching a bit too much TV, maybe online a bit too much, maybe all that sort of stuff. But I think like you got to do what makes you happy, and for some people that's enough, right? For some people, I'm not going to say this is a blanket catch-all for every magician. It's enough. Close-up magic's great. It's a great job, but it wasn't enough for me. I needed more. Even now, like I did my first close-up gig of the year last night, and it's like almost the end of April now, and I loved it. I loved doing it. I loved going into that office thinking, I'm gonna kick the ass out of this tonight. And the first show was a bit rocky. You know, it'd been about it's 5 months since my last close-up gig, so I was like, tentatively, like almost dropped the cards, and my fingers are getting drier now as I get older. I noticed that. So it's harder to do some of the close-up with cards and things. But, by show 2, I was ready. I was ready to go. And like now, every close-up show I do now is an absolute networking opportunity. What do you do? What's your company? What's your speciality? What are you pitching for right now?
I think that's really interesting, actually. James Friedman said that to me, that, if we go into a room sometimes and we got two hours to get around 100 people, we just bomb around them as quickly as we can because we feel that's our job. But actually, they want to talk to you. And you should talk to them and try and make an actual connection with them because, like you said, otherwise you're just giving them amazement, which is what you said earlier.
Oh, I mean, the purpose of a close-up gig for me now is, and it actually works well for the client and for me, so it's a win-win, is to make to make that. I've got an outlet. I want to sell other things to them. So every person I do to, I've got a show at the Edinburgh Fringe. Tickets just went on sale. Check it out. You're going to love it. Blah blah blah. Or what do you do? I say, all right, you have that kind of event. Well, with the Magic Festival, there's things that I can. There's exhibitions. I create kind of magic illusions, like artworks, and I'll tell you about that later. And I think maybe that would work in your thing. We can personalize that. We can build one of these. Blah blah blah. And they're like, oh, that sounds really interesting. So I try and find out what they do. And by the way, James Friedman, you just mentioned him, and one of the smartest people I've ever met. Brought him up to the Magic Festival last year. He's so keyed in. Can
I just add to that? Actually, James is probably one of my most valuable friendships in my life.
Oh, wow.
Actually, like he provides me with such amazing guidance when I have problems in my life, be it personal or professional. I value James's friendship massively, and like you said, he is so smart.
He's so keyed in.
Yeah.
It's probably the right phrase to use. He doesn't miss a trick. That's the thing. He sees the bigger picture with clarity that I don't, and it's great to have. I remember at the end of Magic Fest last year, we had a chat. We were sitting down talking about some of my worries, and it was just great to have his advice. He's a really smart guy.
Whether you're new to magic or a seasoned professional, Alakazam Magic are here to help. Alakazam have been supplying magic to magicians for well over 20 years. Not only do we carry all the latest and greatest magic tricks, books and DVDs, but we also manufacture one of the finest ranges of magic tricks in the world. The Alakazam name is synonymous with great customer service, educated advice and honesty. So if you're shopping for new magic, make sure you check out our website, www.alakazam.co.uk, or pay a visit to our fully stocked shop.
I am absolutely loving the Alakazam Online Magic Academy. It's a fantastic new way of learning magic, and there's a great community building up on there too. Whether you are brand new to magic or a seasoned professional, take a look at it today and enter the code MP20 at the checkout to receive 20% off your subscription. That's M for Magician, P for Podcast 20, and you won't regret it. Take a look at it today.
The Magicians Podcast, brought to you in association with the Magic Circle, the world's premier magical society. Are you ready to join the world's most exclusive magic club? Visit themagiccircle.co.uk to find out more.
Gigi-O, free for 30 days. Be a pro, get Gigi-O.
Nick Crown says it's a pleasure to use. What's he talking about? Well, Gigi-O, of course. Top professional magicians love using Gigi-O to manage their bookings and admin. It's an easy-to-use web-based software that takes care of your inquiries, contracts, invoices, payments, and reports. You can generate professional PDF contracts in seconds and allow your clients to agree them online quickly and conveniently. It will even automatically update the diary on your phone. Read what other magicians say about Gigi-O and take the free 30-day trial right now at getgigio.com. Get Gigi-O is spelled GETGIGIO.com. So listen, you mentioned the Fringe. Let's talk about the Fringe.
Oh, yeah,
You've done well. First of all, let's talk about the thing I really want to know about. What was it like doing a Fringe show with my co-host Alan Hudson in 2008? I mean, look, it all worked out for you. You met your wife that year when you did that show.
Yeah.
Magic to Get Girls By.
That's right.
2-star review on Broadway Baby, which I found
Harsh.
But what was it like working with Alan Hudson? Come on, give us some inside gossip.
Right, so Alan and I were close because we had this close-up cartel that I told you about earlier.
Also, Netflix did not exist in 2008.
No,
so.
we had to find other ways to amuse ourselves. But I always knew Alan wanted to do a Fringe show. He was a massive Fringe fan. He still is. Comes up every year, watches shows. Which, by the way, if you're a magician listening to this and you want to be exposed to a whole bunch of magic, go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in August. It should be mandatory for anyone who lives in the UK.
Yes,
like Blackpool.
100%.
It's go up there, get inspired, watch it all the good, the bad, the ugly. Alan was a guy who wanted to do a Fringe show, and I was in Edinburgh, and I said, look, Alan, I've got this opportunity. Let's do a show together. He was like, yeah, kind of, yeah, and he's normal 100% definite self, and then so twisted his arm, got him on board, and then we were brainstorming names, and I think it was my one of my ones that Magic to Get Girls By. He liked that title, so it didn't start well. I remember going down to Hull, which is Alan's base, and we were working away, slavishly. Watching movies, trying to rehearse, not getting very far. Alan's like, let's go for lunch. Went out for lunch, came back, someone had broken into his fucking flat, stolen all of our laptops.
Oh, I love Hull.
Yeah.
That's Hull.
And it was this blasé, this moment of Alan's like, I think I've just been broken into, and I was like, where's my laptop? Gone. His was gone. And fortunately he was insured, so we got it all sorted, but it was a bit of a...
Thank God they didn't break into his house the night he had Sooty there in the flight case, eh?
Oh, man.
Can you imagine? Wow.
They probably wouldn't have even known what they had.
That's true.
Wouldn't have left it. Yeah, so there would have been selfies taken, I'm sure. So it started off well, but we pulled the show together. It was rough around the edges, but I mean, a lot of the material that Alan made for that show, he is still working right now, A lot of the material I made, I'm still using too. Magic to Get Girls By, the theme was to try and see if magic made you more attractive. I'm delighted to tell the audience listening that yes, it does.
Yeah.
And approximately 15% more is the number we came to.
15?
Yeah, 15. So at the start of the show, we got a cross-section of the audience to give us a score from 1 to 10, attractiveness. And at the end, we asked the same 3 people. It always went up on aggregate, mine slightly more than Alan's. And
hence why you got a wife. Mm-hmm. He had to wait a few years to meet Kat. So.
And the aggregate over the whole of the festival was about 15%. That was the increase. So from the start of the show to the end.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was great. We did great work. I think, as I said before, Alan did his balloon trick. That's where he premiered that, I think, which he's really well known for now. And I think his book test, he wrote a few jokes about nuns and hardback and softback books. So I'm pretty sure he's still using to this day. And we did a good show. We did a really good show. I think I would have changed some things. Yeah, I think I would have changed some things. But man, it's all part of the journey. It was.
So look, you live in Edinburgh.
Yeah, love it.
And so
love
I mean, it's the most beautiful city to live in. But I mean, what is incredible then is you are there every year for the Fringe. And I know you haven't done a show every single year, but but a lot of the years you have.
Yeah,
I want to ask you this question. I think you are more qualified than anyone else to answer this question.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a good magic show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival?
Yes, this is a really challenging question because good is such a hard to define thing. So good in terms of high quality, or good in terms of high grossing, in terms of is it going to make you money, or is it going to get you noticed, is it going to get you booked for other events?
Good reviews.
Good reviews. Lots of things to consider there when you say good. But I think from the point of view of the people watching this podcast is like what gives you that a really amazingly buzzy feeling when you leave the room after a show. So for me, Edinburgh, high energy, entertainment. For a magic show, people just want to see amazing magic and laugh. They want to. So comedy magic's always been popular. They want to see your best work. I think Edinburgh. The great thing about Edinburgh now is we're getting an audience of people who have watched more than one magic show. So they're actually being able to compare and contrast, which is wonderful for magic, because often we're so lazy as close-up magicians because the people you're performing to have never seen a magician before. But in Edinburgh, you need to actually differentiate. So I like personally shows that have a hook that are different. So, when Piff came up with the dragon, it was obviously he was different there. Barry and Stuart, the double act, the darkness, there was a real intrigue there. Pete Furman, always well known for his comedy magic. Chris Cox, him and I started around the same time.
Oh no, there he is. We try not to mention him.
Oh, sorry. Do we?
He keeps literally a tally of how often he is mentioned on this podcast.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I think I was actually one of the most mentioned magicians who had never done one before I came on.
It only took 93 episodes.
Yeah, I know, but it was so I think, if you're going to come to Edinburgh, bring your best work, bring really good stuff. Humour's always good because it has to be entertaining. And find a venue that's suitable. So you want to be able to see the show. Don't do one where there's bad sight lines. So if you're at the back and you can't see a magic show, there's nothing worse. And this is the basics, So make sure the venue is suitable for the show you're doing. That's a really good advice. And that goes towards making a good show, because sometimes you're a bit naive when you're younger. You don't realise why maybe a show is a bit flat. It's because half the fucking audience can't see what you're doing. It's a really important point. And one that I had to learn the hard way. So do material that's right for the venue. Differentiate yourself. Be good. Unless you're going up and doing the free fringe, you've got a responsibility when someone's paying £10 to make sure that you're doing a good show. And that means rehearse, practice, and just don't be sloppy. Don't take it for granted. This is really important for your future reputation. You should really take pride in your work. And again, this is a lesson I've had to learn the hard way, and I still am learning. I think it's difficult to try and create new work every year. But I think that's everything really. I would say there's probably other bits and bobs as well, but those are the important ones for making a good show. You've
created a lot of Edinburgh shows. You're writing like shows 9 and 10, I think, at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I know a lot of material.
Have you found the creative process gets easier for you each year, or do you find that actually you had maybe a period 5 years ago where it was easier and now it's hard? What's it like? What's that journey been like with, starting with a blank page each year with a new show?
It's really difficult. I won't lie to you. It's a really challenging process. I don't like starting with a blank sheet of paper, so constantly I have on my phone notes about things that I see, or ideas, or effects, or illusions, or even something that I see is cool. What I've realised is sometimes when you're in your life and you look around, you see a video, that's cool. That's really cool. But you never actually ask yourself the question why it's cool. And someone once told me, if you ask the question why 7 times, you get to the root of almost everything. So I try and go through that process myself. And then when you find out why something is cool, then you think, well, how can I make that magic? How can I take that and build that into what I do? So the process of creating a show is really challenging, but starting with a piece of paper that has some ideas on it is ultimately a lot easier. And then also having a team around you that you can bounce ideas off of, pick up the phone.
Who are your team? Who do you collaborate with?
Well, my director this year is the same director I had last year. Her name's Esther. She's a theatre director. She's based in Edinburgh. I've had a few different directors over the years, but this is the first time I've done 2 shows with one director in a row. So I'm looking forward. She's just great, really smart, and really good at taking kind of what often is a very magic's. Let's just say softening the edges. I know that sounds a bit weird, but making it more. Taking the geek out of the show, or the things that are maybe a bit less palatable to a wider audience, or making things make sense that I think make sense that don't. Bill Miller, Dusty's called, he's a great magician. He's in Scotland. He's so knowledgeable. He's been on the circuit for ages, years, done the variety shows of the day, and we just sit down. I was in his house yesterday morning, just sitting down for 4 hours, brainstorming, getting the ideas down. For me, the process, I like to write shows that are themed. I like to have something that hangs the show off of. This year, Neon Future is the title of my show. So Future is the really loose theme. There's always a story. There has to be some kind of progression. I feel it's very difficult to do that with magic. Michael Weber often says that the problem with magic and storytelling is that storytelling is always about what happens next when you're looking forward. What's the next thing that's going to happen? But with magic, it's always like, what just happened? You're always looking backwards and reflecting.
Yeah, that's great.
And when these two things clash, it's really hard for an audience's head to deal with going forward and backwards at the same time. So you have to always put the breaks and pauses in at the right moments to let them understand what's happened before you move on with the next thing. The team around me, my wife Svetlana, I've got a team of designers and photographers. Have you seen the new image this year?
Yeah, it looks great. Amazing. It looks amazing. Yeah.
Work with those.
Yeah, look up Kevin's Instagram. You've got what's your URL on that?
It's all at Kevin Quantum.
Yeah, there's some great images this year. They're really eye-catching.
So just having a great team, smart people around you can talk to things with. I mean, Richard Wiseman lives in Edinburgh as well. I won't say that he's on my team, but he's such a smart guy. And every now and again, I'll drop him an email and think, what about this?
Absolute hero, that guy.
He's great. And again, he's like James Friedman. He's just this amazing I remember I asked him last time I was round at his house, which is an amazing house, by the way. And it's like, what's your process? How did you come up with this? He does these amazing YouTube videos. What do you do? And he's like, I don't know. I just
Yeah.
I was like, oh, come on, Richard.
I'm still trying to be his friend, and so is Strange, but no luck. So we did go out for lunch in Edinburgh last year.
He's great. He's been a big supporter of the Magic Festival over the years, and we just finished a project working with him up in Edinburgh where we did this community project with young carers, these young kids. We took them around Edinburgh doing this photograph illusion exhibition that we built. It started off, and then we put them on exhibitions, and he was a massive part of this. It's the only time I've ever worked with Richard on something. So it was great to actually have an opportunity to spend time with them and do something with them. And hopefully we'll do it again. You know, I think he really was impressed with how it turned out. And my wife, Svetlana, was the driving force behind this. So it was great to have this.
Feel free to dismiss this question if you don't have any experience of it, and
No,
I can edit it out.
Fire away.
Sometimes when people go to the Fringe, they actually have a bad time. They have a tough year.
Yeah.
I wonder, have you ever had a tough year up there? And if you have, if you've realised 2 or 3 days in that this is not going to go well this year,
That happens.
how have you kept? What have you done to kind of get through the month? How have you tried to pick yourself up? Because not everyone goes up there as James Friedman did and creates a free Fringe show and it ends up in the West End. Some people go up there and the audiences don't like it and people walk out if it's a free Fringe show.
No, that's the exception to the rule what James did. Again, he's a really smart guy, so it doesn't surprise me. Yeah, it's tough. No, we've all had. When I did my first Kevin Quantum show, I was really feeling the ground about this journey between magic and theatre and storytelling, and I tried a lot of things that did not work with me, my personality, and it was a really difficult show. And also the setup was huge. I had this massive indoor rainbow that I made. I dropped about 100 kilograms of sand from the roof of the theatre onto the floor, illuminated this special sand with 5 different lights, made 7 different rainbows appear just because of the room layout. I had a floating light which flew over the audience in that show. I had a flying rig, the rainbow, and then I had there was another really complicated setup trick that I did, and I had to set all of this up in the beautiful 20-minute turnaround that we have. Fucking nightmare. I would not recommend doing that unless you've got the support of the theatre and the venue, you know, and you negotiate with the theatre that you get that setup time. How did I get around that? I just persevered. I had to get my head down and improve the show. I take notes on my show after every show. I give myself a score out of 10, make a note of all the bad things and all the good things, make sure all the good things stay, and all the bad things I think, how can I make that better? And then and it's an incremental journey. You make small improvements and then you see the show getting better and better. And then by the end of 25 days, you're like, holy shit, I video every show. I watch the video back day 1, day 25, and you're like, and it gives you you have to realize at the end of the run, you will be better, right? It's almost impossible not to be better.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that, and you have to remember that you will get better. And even though that show was maybe just a horrible, horrendous experience, and I remember one of the worst comments I've had, it was like, someone said, it was like watching my dad on stage doing magic tricks. It was horrible. That stuck in my head after it. I mean, we've all asked any Fringe performer, right? They've had horrible reviews. That one always was like, oh my God, audience feedback on the Fringe website. And,
there is nothing more humbling than a bad Edinburgh review when you've put your heart and soul in something. Yeah. We've been there. It's really tough to deal with, isn't it? A bad review sometimes. Yes. Especially because, let's be honest, they're not theatre critics. Often they're 19-year-old students from the university or something. It can be tough to deal with. It
literally doesn't matter. I mean, if you're doing what makes you happy on stage, eventually they'll come round to it. But you've got to be brave. You know, you've got to be brave and put yourself out there and stick to your guns and don't fold. Don't do the easy thing. Find your path, and then the older you get, the easier it becomes, because you've got more life experience and you've got more that differentiates you from the other magician. Because when you start, we're all doing the same things, reading the same books, we're all the same. We all want to try and be mentalists like Darren. Everyone wants to do that. That's fine, because that's how it goes. But when you get older, you got a bit more responsibility on your shoulders, especially working professionals. You have that responsibility to push it forwards, make it better. But it's just getting out of that rut. That's just part of it. You know, you've got to have especially when you're doing new stuff. No one's ever made a fucking indoor rainbow before with sand. No one's hung this pendulum system up before. No one's ever tried to fly a light bulb, or not. It wasn't a light bulb. God knows. Don't want to get into trouble. A floating orb of light over the audience in the front. No one's done that, and it was hard and it was stressful. And that rig was complicated and it got stuck more times than I'd like to admit. And it's hard when the lights come up and there's a bit of thread hanging over your head as an audience. Right? That was a challenging year, but I had to remember that at the end of it I was going to be better. And that was Illuminations, that show. And that show became my breakout show. That was the show that made me realise I could make a go of being a stage magician. So from that horrible moment of that horrible review in that first week to where that show became, how well it did. I remember that I took that show out to Adelaide, week 1 in the Adelaide Fringe. It won the weekly award for Best Magic. I had my first ever 5-star review with that show out in Adelaide. I remember my wife just arrived, and I think I had a sellout weekend. So I'd sold like almost 1,000 tickets in 3 days, right?
Amazing.
Which is amazing. And I was like, oh my God, I can do this. I had that moment. But it started, and I look back at my notes from day 1 of the Fringe and looking at that list of all the things that were wrong thinking. And where it got to, I was so proud, and it's just, you've just got to remember the end. And in the moment, you've got to have the fortitude to make improvements and be brave and bold, but you've got to remember where it's going to end up. And this show that you're making, that material that is being slagged off and given 1 star, may be your Jeff Hobson egg bag at the end, in 40 years' time. It may be the thing that takes you around the world, makes you a fortune, and gets you on the biggest stages all over the world. You've got to remember that this original stuff that you're working on may become that. But you've got to also be in the moment and make the improvements. Yeah, that's the
great.
thing.
That's great advice. Yeah, even if it's shit, it will definitely be better 25 days from now. I think that's a really great mindset to...
There's only one example where that never happened. No, for most people, that's the case. Anyone with a bit of sense, I think that will have to happen. You cannot get worse.
I'd love to talk to you about this. What's the process of taking an Edinburgh show to Adelaide? There's a few people who have done it. And I think there's loads of people who'd love to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What is that Fringe like? Is it comparable to the Edinburgh Fringe, or is it smaller? Or
it's smaller.
Give us an insight.
Nothing is like the Edinburgh Fringe. That's first and foremost the thing to make a note of. No festival in the world ever comes close. Adelaide is less than a quarter of the size of Edinburgh. Edinburgh's crazy. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. It's scary. It's exhilarating. It's amazing. It swallows you up and then usually spits you out the other end with a massive hole in your pocket.
And on the 1st of September, it's like it never happened.
Yeah. Apart from that, the Airbnb prices dramatically drop. All that sort of stuff kicks in. But so I wanted to. It was an accident of chance that my Edinburgh show, that show Illuminations 4 years ago. There's ways you can do the Edinburgh Fringe circuit. You can go free or you can go paid, and a lot of people say go free, and it works for a lot of people. My feeling is to get noticed and to get these other opportunities and other festivals and events, going paid is probably a better way to go. Not always, but you'll find that people that are wanting to book for other theatres will come to the paid venues more than they will come to the other ones. Also, the paid venues offer the kind of support, the technical support I now need. I need bunch of moving lights. I'm a magician. I'm a stage magician. I've got a whole bunch of requirements now that I bring my own lights and whatnot with me. So you can do a lot more and you can be better. You can do a lot more, but it takes time to get to that level of production. Anyway, I advocate for going for the paid venues if you have bigger plans for your future. It costs more money. You might lose money, but once you're ready for that, that's the way to go. Maybe start off doing the free ones, but don't get too settled there, I think, in the long run. It's not true for everyone. You can see Paul DeBeck's success. But from that show, because I had the reputation of Gilded Balloon behind me, having done a show in one of their bigger rooms, that was the springboard for going out to Adelaide and taking that, because a lot of the people that work in the Adelaide and the Perth and all the Australian Fringe circuits, they all cut their teeth in Edinburgh. They know Gilded Balloon, they know the Pleasance, they don't know the Voodoo Room, so you know what I mean. They don't know the smaller venues. But if you've done a really successful show in a paid venue, then they're like, well, it probably will be successful in our festival as well. So we'll take the chance on you. So that's how Adelaide happened. I basically had to ditch the agent I was working with at the time because they weren't able to get a contract. But then I phoned them up. I was pestering them because that's the best way to get anything done is to make phone calls, not to send emails, I think. And then eventually this French company who were performing in this beautiful venue in Adelaide pulled out, and there was a 7:00 slot in a lovely venue called the Corona, and they were like, do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, bring it on. And that run in Adelaide for me was like my first most successful, amazing run overseas. It was just beautiful. It went so well for me. I was so well received. I'd done the show 30 or 40 times, so I landed with a really well worked show. It was Illuminations, and it did well in terms of the awards, and then it got beyond that, got a few extra bookings, and then from then on, it was only because of the bigger venues and having that relationship that it worked. So that's my story. That's how I got into the bigger venues in Adelaide, and then from there, because the show went so well in Adelaide, then Perth were interested, and then because it went well there, it's not a case of we're going to give you this slot. It's a case of me going, I want this venue at this time.
Right,
okay?
yeah.
Which is a much better, it's very unlike the Brexit situation we're now going through. It's a much better bargaining position because you're in a position of strength. And then they're like, well, we can do that. I said, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't. I'd rather not do damage by being in a venue that doesn't suit my show than accepting something or at the wrong time slot. It needs to be this venue at this time. And then if they want you,
they'll make it work.
And it worked. Then I did Perth, and that was like last year. It was, my God, it was this amazing. I did 11 nights there in a 400-seater with my suitcase show, and it rocked. I was getting, I never got anything less than 4.5 stars. The show was storming it. I was getting audiences of at least 200 a night in there, and I was doing it all. It was all this, and for my next trick is like my love letter to the past 10 years of work. It's my favorite routines that I've packaged, and it went really, really well. It was great fun. Then from there, then that sort of spurred me to go out to Tasmania. That got booked off the back of that, and then out to Christchurch this year. I mean, it was sadly they had a bad time with the shootings, but it was prior to that. It's a really great place to visit. That was my first ever. It was my first ever paid tour, so I got paid a lump sum of cash rather than a door split.
Yeah.
And then you can see off the success of me getting better and better, my stage shows, my reputation growing, then it's much easier for me. Then I just apply to a festival in Japan or in South Korea or in America, and they think, well, what have you done? And I've suddenly now I just open this. I've got this massive portfolio of 7 shows. I can show them sales figures and say, look how well it's done over here. This is my audience number. This is how the show looks. I have snippets. I have promo videos. I always have every show professionally filmed. It's a good idea and edited together. I can show you the video if you. So it's all really well packaged up, and I can just say, there we are. That's the show. And then suddenly you're like, well, I've got Anti-Gravity, so I was booked for this beautiful festival called the Gravity Fields Festival, a festival in honor of Isaac Newton, and then I've got this portfolio of work, and then you start putting feelers out and say, well, Illuminations is light themed, Anti-Gravity is about levitation, Vanishing Point is about this whole idea that we're just completely distracted all the time by technology, so it's this whole idea of where misdirection meets distraction. And that's had a really nice. That was the first time I ever built a social message into the show. And Vanishing Point went really well. And this year's Neon Future is this my obsession with how we're all going to be screwed in 60 years' time when artificial intelligence becomes smarter than us.
Oh, not due to a black hole.
The chances of that are slimmer, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've not discussed that yet.
We still need to have a chat about that. Can we go into that now? It would almost feel like a little commercial break. Let's just
black holes. Yeah.
Just
okay.
explain a black hole to me, because they took a photo of one.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even understand why that was a big deal, to be honest. But give us an insight into a black hole. Also, there's one other tiny question. One other tiny question maybe you could answer, which is, what's at the end of the universe?
Right. Well, that's a big question. First of all, the universe doesn't end. We believe it's expanding, and there's only ever an end where there's something that has a start. But the universe is the space only goes as far as space reaches. It's hard to explain this because it's really
this is the problem.
Because you have to use themes that we can't understand in our physical world. Because everything we have, like a drink, for instance, a glass of water has a start, a middle, and an end to it. But the universe is expanding into something that doesn't actually exist until the universe gets there to expand into it. So space only begins to exist when the universe gets bigger. Before the universe started, there wasn't any space. There wasn't any time. There was just nothing.
No Jaffa cakes.
No, absolutely not. Well, maybe, who knows? But I mean, we can't say for maybe in a parallel universe. But it's only when the universe started expanding and growing that there was actually space and there was actually stuff there that we actually had starts, middles, and ends, and beginnings and ends. And that's just how we formulated. But it could be other places where starts, middles, and ends don't exist. So the universe just gets bigger and bigger, and then as it grows, then space starts to exist where there was no space before.
I think I understand.
There's not like a massive space that the universe is growing into. Space only begins to exist when the universe gets bigger.
But what's it growing into?
Well, you only ask that question because of the way that our world is structured.
Right.
It's not a relevant question because...
I'm pretty good at irrelevant questions on this podcast, to be honest.
I think probably because I don't fully understand it myself. I'm explaining concepts to you that are... This is why physics is so difficult, because you have to have concepts that are outside the realm of what our physical understanding of normal things actually are.
Right.
Like the whole thing is fascinating. Like really, mathematics, people give it a hard time, but in maths, where else do you have to work? You have to start off in the real world. You go into an imaginary world that you just build out of numbers, solve the problem, take the result back into the real world, and it actually works. You can't solve the problem in the real world, so they make imaginary worlds to solve problems in. It's amazing. Black holes, why is taking a picture of a black hole interesting? Well, first of all, light doesn't come out of black holes, so imagine taking a picture of something that's inherently black. That's why it's so amazing.
I understand. Right, yeah.
So the black holes are hard to find because everything gets sucked in. It's not like a star where it shines light everywhere. It sucks stuff into it. Everything, really, apart from, well, this thing that's called Hawking radiation that, most of the time people think that black holes are going to get bigger and bigger, and then Hawking came along. Are we going to put this in? Is this going to go?
I reckon if we do another 2 minutes, I can move this entire podcast series into the science department on the podcast app. So, because I reckon I'll get more downloads there.
Right, okay, I don't know what to say about that. This conversation.
Basically, what you've just found out is I'm all about the ratings. That's what you found out.
We're going to have to take the physics into this as well, go to the physics angle.
Actually, talk about this podcast. You and I have something in common, which is this for me has always been a passion project. I don't make any money from it.
Yes.
I spend all my time on it, and I generally often wonder if I should have done.
No, you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have done anything. This is such an important thing that you're doing. And I've said this to you before. This is legacy. People are going to listen to this in hundreds of years' time. You're taking a snapshot of the magic world as it is right now. This is so important.
Oh, well, that's very sweet.
Seriously, I mean, like podcasts are the medium of which how information's been transferred at the moment. Maybe it was books, still is books, but it was mainly books 100 years ago. This is so important that you're doing this. Great. Seriously, it really is.
Well, you have your own passion project, which is the Edinburgh Magic Festival.
Yes.
And it's a similar thing, right? You spend months working on it. I don't imagine you make a lot of money from it, because I see you bring in acts from around the world. Why did you decide to do the Edinburgh Magic Festival first of all?
Right, so my wife was a graduate of Edinburgh Napier's Festivals and Events Management course, which I think is a really worthwhile thing. Again, if you're a young magician, you want to understand how festivals and events work. It's a good course to do. It's a master's course, 1 year long. And I was a magician who was watching way too much TV and earning money from close-up gigs and not doing much else. And we just thought, let's just start this. Let's do this. You've got the skills in events management. I've got the contacts in the magic world. Get some people up, do some shows, see what happens. And we did it, and that's how it started. And it just grew arms and legs. So year one, we had like John Archer came up. I don't know if it was Rob was up. I know, I invited the people up that I was friends with, and did Keelan and Charlotte, Keelan Laser, who was on the podcast before. And we just had this wonderful little festival, booked this theatre, never had a clue, this beautiful theatre in Edinburgh, the Lyceum. And it was great, and it's now 11 years old, and we've had so many amazing people. Actually, I've got a little present for you.
It just grows and grows and grows, doesn't it?
I got you a little gift.
More Jaffa cakes?
No.
Oh, it's a t-shirt.
Yeah, a t-shirt from the Magic Festival. Man. Not at all.
That's
coveted.
Great.
I've actually got my own one on just now. It's under my jumper, but I'll try and think.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, this is brilliant.
Yeah, and
thanks.
No, not at all. Pleasure.
Two gifts in one podcast. I can't believe it.
Magic Fest, 10 years old now. We've worked in some of the biggest theatres in Edinburgh. We've had the great names up. We've had like
Marco Carvo,
yeah,
hero, that guy.
Marco Carvo, Prince of Illusion. You know Marcel.
Amazing.
They used to be, I think they're called something else now. David Berglass, Paul Daniels. I've just had some great, amazing.
Why do you do it?
Daniels. So I do it just so I could rub shoulders with people that are amazing in the magic world. The same reason I guess you do the podcast.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like I don't make any money. It actually made me feel better spending the extra income I was making for all these grubby corporate close-ups to do something really powerful and positive for magic. And it was just amazing, this whole thing that grew, and we worked in, I was comparing the show a few years ago. We're in a 2,000 seat theatre. Marco Carvo was on the bill, you know.
It's incredible.
We had some of those amazing South Korean acts over. There's a school in South Korea that university course on magic, and they've created some of the most amazing. Remember that sand act?
Yes.
We had these guys came over from South Korea, and God, you have to forgive me, I forget everyone's names now. Just some of the most amazing creative acts, and we had them on stage.
Will you continue to do it, or was it just like you said? I mean, I certainly find it with this podcast. There are times I just go, I need a break from this. Like, it takes me. Is it a bit like that with the festival?
I'm taking my foot off the pedal now. We've actually Magic Fest just employed a second person now to help Svetlana. The applications are just closed actually for it, and they are now working on this portfolio of work around the festival. The summer festival, it was just we tried to make it work for 10 years. We struggled every year, probably lost money most years or broke even. And I've got a family now, I've got a daughter, I can't afford just to take that hit anymore. So we're moving everything to Christmas, which seems to be a much more sensible time to have a magic show.
Yep.
And we're doing, rather than bringing in, we can't really compete with the Fringe. Edinburgh in August has now 40, 50, 60 magic shows on. Can't really compete with that, bringing one-man shows up. So we're doing the gala show, the mixed bill show. That's unique. We're doing immersive experiences. Those kind of lights in the forest ideas. Got pitching for a few things like that. Svetlana's got massive ideas for here, for London, for West End. Really creative and unique ways of presenting magic, and that we're looking for. We need to find 6-7 figures worth of funding for, but it's on paper now. It's written down. The ideas are out there. I can't really. It's hard to discuss them out loud because it's at the process point.
Yeah,
you can't talk about. But Magic Fest now that we've taken all that experience, that knowledge, and we're now thinking, how does magic work in lots of different areas? So in history. Some of the concepts we're building in Edinburgh just now for Hogmanay and the Scottish celebration, and how does that work with Scottish history? How does it work with these lighting outdoor exhibitions? Where does magic fit in with that? How does it work in a different context? Magic Fest for me has opened my eyes. We've built some of the things that are made with a floating forest. We made these balloon trees, and then made very lightweight trunks out of styrofoam, and then we have these things floating. We worked out the exact balance of helium balloons to these trees, and we have a room like the Magic Circle Theatre room right now. We have 7 or 8 of these balloons floating at different heights for a launch.
Great.
Colour changing flower bed, 1,200 flowers, 3 days of my time arranging these flowers on a bed, so that whenever you view this actual physical bedstead from a different angle, you see a different colour as you walk around of different flowers. So from one angle it looks like red flowers, then white angle, then blue flowers.
That sounds amazing.
What else have we done? So many other. The ribbon maze, this idea that you lose control of your senses inside this massive room just full of ribbons hanging down. You can get lost in a 12-metre square area. The rainbow, obviously, for my show. It's really spurred me on to create so many different concepts for magic, like Secret Room, a really great name for a show that I can't remember who came up with that originally.
I'm sure who that was.
We turned that into a historical context where magicians are inspired by a historical building and build close-up magic shows around that. People tour from room to room seeing a different show inspired by the history or the context in which this show is built in. Tower of Illusion, which is like a sort of Crystal Maze meets Lords of the Rings with magic involved. Again, a sort of promenade type show. Different. So I collaborated this Christmas with Charlie Caper. We made a Christmas show. Charlie Caper, by the way, phenomenal magician. Ever get to speak to him? He's amazing. Up in Edinburgh, that idea of I want to collaborate now. As I said before, working alone as a close-up magician is really lonely. Collaboration's brilliant fun. Working with people like Richard on the project we had last year, the Hogmanay House idea, I'll probably work with Esther again on that, the director on that one. All these projects are team projects. They're not solo work, and that's much better for me, for everyone, and it's just where the best ideas come from.
Oh, so you're just contributing to what we do, and you're not just taking from the industry. And that's why I really wanted you on this podcast, Kevin, because I look at you on paper and I go, there's not really anyone else, in this country who's contributed actually so much as you have over the last few years in terms of putting on public shows, your own shows, putting on the festival, and you're really passionate about presenting it in a different way, which of course just means it feels fresh for the public, which means they want to see it.
I mean,
it's a real struggle to sell tickets to a magic show, isn't it?
But not if you make it. If you start out with really good quality and good concept, it's hard to start off with. But then you build your audience. People want to come and see. Like, I mean, when I reference Star Trek Voyager and anti-gravity, like the Star Trek fans love that in the audience. You know, I have to I levitate at the end. I do a one-man levitation. For that to work, I have to be repeating the name of Captain Catherine Janeway over and over in my head. It's the silly little hooks like that make these shows unique and original and interesting. Just get out there and take the opportunity that you have as a magician to make. Don't get stuck doing close-up magic. It really, unless you're doing character stuff or something that's driven and it's unique and it's interesting, it becomes a bit of a drag. Just use
it's
that
tough
time
though,
and
isn't
effort.
it, financially, because that money just comes in, you go and do it, you get paid. This is totally different. You have to put money out on the hope that it comes back. You know,
you have to spend, you have to invest in yourself. Like, I'm maybe earning less now than I was as a close-up magician. My turnover is much more, but my expenses are huge.
Are you happier?
Oh yeah, you kidding me? Like the touring work takes me away from home for a long time, but taking my family over and living on the beach in Australia and Adelaide from January till February, right? The worst months here. They are the worst.
Dreadful.
It's so dark. The day starts at 9:30 and ends at 3:30, especially in Scotland.
Yeah.
We're just sitting on the beach. I mean, February comes. There's one weekend in February. I'm lying on the beach and I turn to Svetlana and say, "God, I wish I was in Blackpool right now." You know, there's one week where that happens. But apart from that, we living on the beach. When I got my daughter playing, we go to the beach every morning. That was amazing, and long may that continue. Making my own work. Working with people, creating those things, and actually having the budgets to get people in. Like, Magic Fest is maybe a better magician because I'm more creative, I'm more open to ideas and concepts. Just do stuff that's not what everyone else is doing. Surely that just makes sense, shouldn't it? Just for your own benefit, not even for magic. Do it for yourself.
I think there's two things I think here. First of all, I think a lot of this actually, and I don't want to analyse it, but I think a lot of this is to do with the fact actually you didn't have magic in your life as a kid. And you came to it as an adult. And the second thing I want to say is I think we're really lucky to have you actually in our industry, doing all these interesting things, doing interesting shows at Edinburgh, taking shows around the world. You've shown me and other people that you can do it. You can make a living as a stage magician. And then what you've done with the festival as well is just absolutely amazing, Kevin. So I just want to say thanks.
Well, I don't think I'm special in any way. I think just I got pushed by people, and I think I'm just as lazy as the next person. I could easily sit and watch TV all day, but this is why you need to be surrounded by people that are good and have a good work ethic. Otherwise, it's very easy just to slip into old habits. The only thing, if you see me and think that I'm doing good things and I'm successful, then it's only because of the people I surround myself with. There's very little. That's where it comes from. So get out there and do stuff with people, and you've got Strange.
I love him, absolutely love him. Mate, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Real pleasure.
This has been a great podcast. I really loved it. A lot of brilliant thoughts and ideas, and we covered a lot of ground. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
I can't remember the last time I heard someone talk with such enthusiasm as Kevin just did in that last 15 or 20 minutes there. I absolutely love that and hope you did too. Thank you so much, Kevin, for a great interview. I meant what I said. I think this industry is really lucky to have you. We are moving towards the end of the series now. It's going to start getting really exciting. You're not going to believe some of the names that are going to come up on this podcast over the next few weeks. Make sure you stay tuned, and I'll see you again next Friday for another brand new episode. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.